Anime is a vast and varied medium, and if you're not already familiar, it can be daunting to find something you might be interested in watching. This is a podcast where three average anime enjoyers introduce their uninitiated co-host to their favorite anime touchstones, so he can join them deep in the Weebs.
This week we watched Baccano. Baccano, which is Italian for ruckus, is a Japanese light novel series written by Ryogo Narita and illustrated by Katsumi Enami. The novels were adapted into a 16-episode anime television series directed by Takahiro Omori and produced by Aniplex. The series made its North American television debut when it started airing on the Funimation channel in 2010. The anime adaptation of the series has been popular in Japan and the United States, and has also received significant praise for its plot, characters, strong dubbing, animation, and musical score. The series, told in out-of-order sequences, spans 3 consecutive years of Prohibition-era America. The characters include alchemists, thieves, thugs, mafiosi, and camorristi, who are at first unconnected to one another. The plot consists of 3 seemingly unconnected events. 2 bottles of immortality elixir are passed around Manhattan by gangsters, believing it's alcohol. A supposed monster massacres members of 2 gangs, attempting to hijack the transcontinental train the Flying Pussyfoot, and a missing man is tracked down by his sister and a gang. Throughout the narrative, characters begin to cross paths, setting off events that spiral further and further out of control. We watched episodes 1, 7, and 13.
What are the last 3 episodes?
Sort of an epilogue-y thing.
Okay. I don't think I've seen those.
Yeah, the first 13 episodes were aired on TV, and the last 3 were straight to DVD for some reason.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is a little weird.
So, it was very brave of you to select the final episode as one of the episodes we watched for this show.
Yeah. So I was mainly the person who put this one on the list. I kind of set up an impossible scenario for myself in doing so, because choosing episodes for this kind of show is really difficult, because you have, it's really an ensemble piece, so there's no real main character through line. It's, and because it's told out of order, and it's spanning a couple different groups of people and places, picking episodes from the middle would just be kind of a cloud of noise, really, without any kind of grounding point to it. So I chose instead to do sort of the beginning, the end, and one point kind of in the middle, to give the TLDR version of it, I guess. But since it's giving you the basic plot through line and introducing you a little bit to the of the variety of characters, I figure it gives you a setup of it, and then if you're interested in finding out more about the nonsense that happens between all the characters related to this event, you can go watch the full thing.
Makes sense. I didn't realize that episode 13 was the last episode.
It kind of, like I said, there's 16 episodes, and that one's the end, quote unquote, and then there's an epilogue stuff with follow-ups of some of the characters.
Okay.
It's kind of fun. This sets up almost like a modern thing that happens now. This is the end of the series, but it's not.
Yeah.
After we decide it isn't.
So like I said, we watched 3 episodes. I picked episode 1, episode 7, and episode 13. Notably, 7 is the one that has the beginning of the story, and because 1 starts kind of in media res in the middle of some stuff.
Does it?
Yeah, it starts kind of in the middle of the story.
Well, it starts with 2 people talking about where the story should begin.
Oh, sure. That's the framing device.
Uh-huh. Which then they have a flashback to themselves, even though I don't actually know if they appear in the rest of the series. This show is weird. Bob, do you want to handle our walkthroughs of these as usual, or do you want to pass it
I
off
was
to
thinking
Joe?
of absolutely. Joe selected these, and I can tell it was a passion of hers. This particular series. I'd like to hear from her perspective.
You did
That's
that.
okay.
Uh-oh. Okay. I didn't really... Okay, so the notes... the notes that I put on the sheet, because normally the way I have it set up is I put the little summary of the episode at the top, and then we put our notes underneath, kind of broken up by scene or whatever. But in this case, I just pulled the full episode descriptions from the Wikipedia episode lists,
Mm-hmm.
and then just kind of put enters in, but to break up the main events. So I guess I'll just go through those like that, and we can talk about the events.
Yeah, you're like sub 1 paragraph episode summary for episode 13 is a page and a half long. So
Yeah.
this is your bed.
Yeah.
You made it.
Yeah.
Now let's go to sleep.
Joe, I just want you to know, I fully support your decision and the choice of chaos you brought into your life.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My other thought was to basically do like just episode 1, 2, 3, which would have been fine, but again, like since it jumps around so much and you don't really have that much of a sense of what's going on, it would have been like a lot of just what the fuck is going on.
I feel like it's almost appropriate if you started by talking about episode 7 then.
I mean, yeah, do we want to talk about this more chronologically?
We could. That would be a first.
I should have done that. I should have just gotten the list of the events in order that they happen. Okay, so we'll start with episode 1. Episode 1. The vice president doesn't say anything about the possibility of him being the main character.
Well, he doesn't. Does he?
And you're telling me this was based on a series of light novels. Really interesting.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Light novels, for those wondering, they kind of grew out of basically like pulp fiction novels. They're like under 50,000 words usually, I think, and they're illustrated manga style, so it's like a mix between like a story and a comic.
I love that movie.
It's
very influenced by that movie as well in terms of its storytelling.
what movie?
Pulp Fiction.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say I think it's sort of like the sort of Japanese take on a novella, maybe.
Kind of.
Okay, I don't know anything.
It's a little different than that. But yeah, like they're printed like very quickly. That's not the word I want. But like the production schedule is very tight, and they come out pretty frequently.
But they also always have super long titles like, I can't believe that my little sister, who was the president of the volleyball club, has grown into such a mature woman over the summer that she spent in another dimension.
To be fair, that's more of like a post-2000s thing.
That's true. As well as the style at the time.
Episode 1. We start off in 1932 in New York City at the Daily Days newspaper, where the vice president and his assistant Carol, who's like a 6-year-old child, are looking over the series of events that this story is about.
I do appreciate that he just kind of walks in there and says what I'm thinking and get off the table.
Yeah, because she's got everything spread, like all the files and stuff spread out, and books for reference and stuff like spread out on the conference table. And she's
something child labor law
on the table, sitting in the middle of it, going through things.
Well, here's the thing. He's kind of a bean dad, we will learn. Because every time, like, he keeps asking, like, oh, and why do you think that we should begin the story there? And she, like, starts giving her answer, and then he's like, 130 points. And it's like, on what scale? Hey, what are you ranking me on? And he's just the worst.
She asks, too.
And he never answers. He's the worst.
Dad, is this you?
then I think we get close to the introduction of our upcoming events, yes?
Yeah, because, like, they're just talking about, they mentioned the event, so we get some, like, name drops of the things that happened, like, oh, maybe it started here, maybe it started here.
We also
And
get the wonderful images.
yeah.
There's a little bit of a lot of blood.
Yeah. I'm sorry that I forgot to give you guys the gore warning. I got distracted before I put that out. But yes, hey listeners, this show, and some of the critics who were talking about it when it came out noted this as a detractor from the series, they felt. Because it's kind of like fun action, gangster stuff. But then there's some like very graphic violence that
I'd like to
happens
speak to that.
throughout. Mm-hmm.
I have seen gore in many forms.
Yes.
A lot of times unwillingly. I don't feel this was that terrible. Don't get me wrong. It's definitely not a 0.
I feel like it's mostly just like the warning is more so that you know it's in there, because frankly some of them kind of happen quickly out of the blue and you're not really expecting them.
That lends to its realism, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but I don't know how much we want realism in an anime show about immortals on a train.
I mean,
spoiler alert!
I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is gore, yes, but I guess there should be like a degree of understanding to what extent, because gore, I feel like, gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
Without like a scalable, and I realize everyone's scale is going to be different.
Right.
I have family members that.
Go on.
I was just have family members that see blood, and just like someone gets punched a couple times, they have a bloody nose. Oh, and they lose their minds over it.
Yeah, I use the word gore here because it's specifically viscera that you see a lot of.
Yeah, the scene where Lad is gesturing with his bone sticking out of his severed arm. That's a bit like a lot of the time it's like people are kind of like water balloons full of blood bursting, and there's that sort of like B-movie, horror movie kind of quality to the gore. But then there's a couple of times where it's just like, ooh, no, you studied an anatomical drawing for that gore. That at that point it's like like you were saying, it's not like the most visceral depiction, but it is often like uncharacteristically sudden. That is just
it's like
the shock value is not in the quality, but in the unexpectedness of it.
Right, like there's not a lot of it. It's just when it happens like, whoa.
I will caveat and counterpoint, because we have the scenes of the pictures, and I believe one of them is the little boy getting shot in the head.
Yes, that was what I was going to bring up. Yeah, because when they're talking about all different events and flashing between them, like, again, and if you're coming into this, not knowing anything about the show, and it's the first episode, and you do not have the context of, like, these people are immortal, and that one specifically, like, we didn't really touch on his story at all, but that kid is like the way he is because that dude, like, specifically tortured him over years and years trying to figure out how to kill them.
Jeez.
Yeah, so...
That actually explains that in my notes, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so you get stuff that, like, takes advantage of the fact that these are mortal people who can survive very brutal injuries. And also the effect of, like, when their arm gets cut off or whatever, all the blood and stuff rushes back to them and it, like, sucks it back in.
Just like the Iron Giant, when all those nuts and bolts kind of get the radio signal and say it's time to go home.
Exactly like the Iron Giant.
Like when Chikazi Splood headbutts that guy off the train and he's all like, Superman. Sorry, it's a spoiler for later.
So yeah, we have the Vice President and Carol discussing how to, like, arrange the series of events. Like, hey, do we do it, chronologically? Like, where does the story start? Do we do it by choosing a main character, quote unquote, from the group, and like following them in their journey through it all?
And you see, I appreciate that device being used because it is a nice kind of both direct and yet simultaneously subtle way of telling the audience, this is the way you're going to get your story, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah.
I'll save my thoughts on that for the end of this episode. Go on, sorry.
Okay. So yeah, we get their flashback to their train ride.
Separate train. Different train incident.
Separate train.
I don't have the specific
breakdown notes of like the scenes, so anyone can jump in at any time with specifics within a section.
It's first watching this show, I have no preface of what's going on. So when we see the images here, I thought these people were actually dying.
Right.
Like, we see the kid getting shot in the head, and we see the bookstore with the shot up people, and I'm like, well, I guess we're going to be watching these people lead up to their death, which is a trope. But then we see the fight with the one guy, I can't remember his name, but he gets his fingers cut off.
Yeah.
By the bum.
Firo.
And they grow back on. It's like, I still hadn't put 2 and 2 together at that point.
Right.
I'm like, there's magic in this world. Makes sense to me.
I feel like I specifically had a note here on my side that just like, Wolverine really needs to step up his game. This guy's parts come back to him.
Yeah, don't need to grow new parts. Just suck them back up. I like that introduction too, because like he stops and he gives the bum some money. And then the bum's like, oh, you got a bunch of money in your wallet, so I want it.
So would you say he was bum rushed?
Yes, because he also was stabbing him in the back, kind of near his butt. So he rushed his butt, bum.
And then his fingers come back, and he just mollywops that old man on the street. Wasn't there like an episode somewhere in the middle where that guy was an assassin sent to get him by one of the other? Okay, is this where we start introducing the fact that there's like warring mafia families?
I believe so, because Mr. Satan's in this series, and it completely threw me off.
Oh, God.
Because I have an image of a face when I hear that voice, and it's coming from someone who does not look like him.
Yeah, good question. Who watched in English? Who watched in Japanese?
English.
I watched in English.
Okay.
I had a joke. I decided to leave it on the ground.
Okay.
This is the rare time where I watched it in Japanese because I watched the version that was on my hard drive, which I assumed was the same one that you had, but apparently wasn't. So I only had a subtitle version to watch, so I didn't get to hear the dub on this one.
Interesting. Okay. I just want to bring that up because specifically when they cast the English actors, they did so with the fact in mind that they were going to be giving the characters appropriate European accents for where they were from. So if you listen to the Japanese, you don't get all the accents.
This is one of those instances of kind of like when you throw Cowboy Bebop or Outlaw Star, or at least in my opinion, and as well as like Yu Yu Hakusho, this is one of those like perfect dubs in my opinion.
Yeah, it was a very highly praised dub job.
I do not know. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Mine was a side note. I'm sure yours is a continuation. Feel free.
I was just gonna say one of the voice actors. I love Isaac in Miria because of who they are, but also Isaac's voice actor J. Michael Tatum voices the lead in 2, or at least the male lead in 2 of my favorite anime. And I can always pick his voice out in a crowd, and it's always spot on.
And I don't know dub actors, but was there a Joey here? Joey from Yu-Gi-Oh?
There's definitely someone trying to do a Joey Weewa.
No, he specifically is not in this series.
Okay. Well, there were some great impersonations.
Yeah, of course, because we've got New York gangsters, but we've also got a lot of Europeans running around.
Yeah, actually, I gotta say that would have really helped with some of the just like character tracking, especially in this first episode, because we're not only jumping around so much at it, but like we're just getting introduced to so many people for so little time each. That's just like the Japanese voices are very.
Aiden's in a familiar way.
To a non-native speaker, it's it does sound a lot of the same to the ears.
Well, no, I was actually going to say, because I've played a lot of the Yakuza video game series, which have only twice actually been dubbed into English. I kind of have an ear for like the typecasting of like character archetypes when it comes to Japanese dubbing, and I'd say that they were definitely dubbed like that. Like, oh, the big guy who is all about let's use violence first to solve our problems. Like he sounded like that. The like, oh, I am a smart charisma kind of guy, and I know stuff that I'm not letting on that will be revealed somewhere in the late second act. Like they were very much sort of like character cast for the character archetypes in a way that was like, at least it was like familiar and fitting to the archetype of the character, but didn't really say anything to like you never would have known. It almost hides the fact that all of these people are like, 100 years old or however long they actually are from the whole boat debacle. It's just like, oh yeah, no, they are just people who are here. Not like there was nothing that said that they were maybe like, not native to Manhattan. Nobody said forget about it.
We also get with the gangster fights, I believe, it's Firo and I can't remember his name in the bookstore.
That's Luck, I think. Luck Gandor, one of the Gandor brothers.
Where he's reading his Edgar Allan Poe book to find out he's not afraid of the book anymore. And then they get shot up.
I love that detail.
This one does.
They get godfathered.
Which, that's when they perform the blood-sucking ceremony. No. Well, yes. Except we see the blood-sucking ceremony with the kid as well.
Yeah.
Because he calls the henchman Lowfoot or whatever. Lowbrow. That's when things start clicking for me.
Yeah, so that's earlier 1932. We have a member of the Runarada mafia family, Gustavo, is searching for Dallas Genoard, while the Runadas fight a turf war with the Gandor family, which is why Gandor and Firo get shot up in the...
Wow, I didn't pick up any of that from watching the episode. It's just like, all right, clearly these people have things going on. What is it? Don't know right now.
Yeah, like, okay, this is... When I was younger, all of this was, like, way easier for me to keep track of. Like, my brain was sharp and on point, and I had no trouble with it. I love this kind of stuff. Nowadays, I have had COVID twice. I have had an autistic burnout episode. My brain is Swiss cheese. So I almost was tempted to put together like a yarn map of just everybody.
We don't have room for a conspiracy board anymore, I was told.
I don't. I do have a lot of yarn, though.
I was about to say, check out the Yarn Mountain spreadsheet on Google Docs. Anywhere Google Docs are served. At Google, I guess.
I've been hashtag Yarn Mountain tagging them, so you can find them that way on Twitter and Mastodon. Anyway, if you want free yarn, yeah, it's free. Take it away from me,
please. We need our couch back.
Okay, and then we go to 1931. No, wait, is this when we get the... Sorry, I'm trying to remember whether the intro song is before or after the bookstore stuff. I think it was after Carol and the vice president.
No,
And before the
Or no, it's
bookstore.
here. Yeah.
I don't think there's a cold open. I think we open with the intro and then go to Carol and the vice president, whatever he is.
Oh, I thought Carol was first. Okay, but yeah, anyway, we get an opening theme song, which is a very cool jazz song called Guns N' Roses. That was released as a single as well as the closing song. It was very popular. But that gives us kind of a run through of all the characters. Like it gives the splash of them with their name next to them.
Yeah, the fact that it manages to go for the entire like run length of an intro song, still introducing new characters, is like it says something about the show. I think it's just like, oh,
it's like, hey, you're in for an ensemble cast.
You are going to need help remembering these, so we introduce these flashcards that we will be going over every episode.
So I believe we go to the train, like the after action of the Flying Pussyfoot.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, in 1930, and this is in 1931. So this is before Carol and everybody. Because the main event spanned from 1930 to 1932. So in 1931, Firo and Ennis and Misa and Luck and his two brothers, Keith and Berga Gandor, are at the train station awaiting the arrival of the Transcontinental Express, the Flying Pussyfoot.
I will giggle every time I hear that name.
Don't know why it's called that.
It sounds
because
better.
You can't.
It's one of those things. I'm pretty sure that's just Japanese people using English words.
You can't call it the Orient Express. I hear that's been trademarked.
Did you just say trademarked?
What it is.
Maybe.
Okay.
I know what I'm doing.
So in addition to a gore warning, I'm gonna give a pussyfoot warning that you're gonna hear that name a lot.
Pussyfoot.
Okay.
Looking in our notes, I think, Nick, you and I have a disagreement.
Oh, word? Where?
Because under my More Magic, you put that you love two particular characters, and I can't say that I like them.
Interesting. Okay. All right. I mean,
find that Isaac and Maria, or Miria?
Miria, yeah.
Miriana? Like the
Miria.
trench?
Miria.
Oh, okay.
With the way this show is set up, it's almost, to me, in my opinion, a forced humor, almost. That it detracts from the show.
Oh, Isaac and Miria. Yeah,
yes.
They're very much the comedy relief characters. And
it's like Jesse and James, that you just are waiting for the gag and the setup.
Yeah, but like Jesse and James in like if you took them out of Pokemon and dropped them in like a different show where it didn't quite gel with the tone.
Well, it's almost like I forget the last show where I was talking about this, but like when you have a Marx Brothers movie and it's almost like the Marx Brothers are out of touch with the rest of the movie, this is the flip of that. Like they are having their own Marx Brothers movie, but we're watching from the cameras of the serious movie going on. And I think that's what I get about it. Like I have some issues with this show, and I think I like those two. It's a mix of two things. One, they are sort of a they're kind of like a more straightforward levity. They are. I think it's kind of fun that they are sort of the they're kind of like the shadow players from Utena, except if they were tangible, like they are actually in the story and not just having like some goofball Greek chorus moments on the side away from being able to interact with the story.
And they are completely unrelated, unattached to anyone else in the series. They are just like a random couple that kind of ends up in this mess. But they are just two incredibly oblivious but kind-hearted people who find themselves among all this.
Well, that's a Chuck, before you go, is we don't get it so much in these episodes. We only really get it in the epilogue in 2001 in the last episode, but like the thing about these characters is that they are absolute fools. They are like painfully oblivious to the truth of things right in front of them, but in such a way that in everything they do, they are kind-hearted. And there are so many people in this show who like are technically, you know, the good guy main character in some way, but also they got like a fucked up dark spot in their heart. These two are goofballs, and they are always taking the most like optimistic, kind-hearted read, and they are always acting out of kindness, and they are too good for this world. They are my cinnamon buns, and we get way more of that in the main show, but like that's kind of the bigger thing. Like it's as much as like for some, like, this is not a pleasant world to hang out in, and these two exist in spite of that. So I like them as a sort of protest against the tone of the rest of the show in a lot of ways.
I'm going to start with first, Nick, you are correct and Bob is wrong.
All right, it's a good start.
And I would say my read on these is kind of like yours, except the first thing I came into is like, this is Bill and Ted's excellent immortality for them.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, and that's like I watched it like, oh my god, I love these two. Why do I love these two? And I start looking at like so many different like comedy anime I watch and various other shows. I'm like, this is essentially a just strictly positive Laszlo and Nadia a la What We Do in the Shadows. In this show, they're just very happy immortals who just really love being good people.
Yeah.
And I love them.
Specifically, these two are thieves from, you know, gangster era New York City. And they end up immortal because they drink the elixir thinking it's alcohol. So they don't know that they're immortal or that any of these other people are immortal or anything. They're just in the middle of this weird hailstorm of bullets going back and forth between people for stakes they are completely unaware of.
What do you mean 50 years has gone by?
Yeah, they're like, hey.
Oh, did I put my note on was that note about magic related to other people?
Or when he had a cut on his cheek and it healed.
Yeah.
Oh,
like,
yeah, no, that's
the
them.
wound disappeared.
Like, wow, that's really cool. And they do not think about it any further than that.
Uh-huh.
At which point, a married couple ends up on the side of the trains.
Yeah.
Okay, so
you want to talk about Lad a little bit?
Yeah.
Because that guy clearly doesn't have the magic in him.
He's got a certain magic in him.
Okay, so we come to the FBI are investigating a bunch of bodies that have been left along the tracks behind the flying pussyfoot. And they're all like dead and completely like chopped up and stuff because there's a serial killer on the train. And one of those that they find is Lad with Lua, who are husband and wife outfits. Oh my god.
Wedding?
Bride and groom outfits.
Uh-huh.
Tux and dress.
And he's like completely cut up and missing an arm and stuff. Yeah, and their thing is, I forget Lad's thing entirely.
He's one of the very many fucked up murder horny people in this show.
Yeah.
Sorry, what?
He's got a boner for murder.
Yeah, he's got a murder boner. What's this isn't even an anime vocab word. This is just
we warned I missed it and I blacked that out.
No,
it's context.
Yeah,
this is also more knowledge from having watched more of this series.
Right.
You get a little bit of it, but
at the very least, Bob, you understand this is not a pleasant man.
No.
He enjoys inflicting pain more than he dislikes having pain inflicted on him. That's why he doesn't mind being all beat up and bloody by the side of the tracks.
Yeah.
He's a fun sociopath.
Well, he's having fun. Isn't that really what's most important when you're a sociopath?
You just gotta make yourself laugh.
So we have these like kind of layers of immortal people because we have people from the first generation of immortals, who have lived long lives, and some of them have turned to violence because they've gone a little mad from being around too long. Some have just, found out that they like killing people, so that's why they are. Then we have some of the current generation of the people from New York who drank the elixir, and since they're like related to the gang wars and stuff, we have a lot of hitmen and crazy people in that sense. Lad specifically is a hitman for the Russo Mafia family. And he's a straight up sadistic dude who's like way too into it.
You gotta love what you do and do what you love.
Yeah. You'll never work a day in your life.
He did not, not talk, explaining that, hey, I'm bleeding out here, please heal me.
Yeah, but yeah, he and Lua, like, they're like weird. They're that weird couple who's like way too into each other that makes everyone else uncomfortable being around.
Like Laszlo and Nadia.
They notice your vibe from across the bar, and they're wondering if you're into like torture stuff.
Do you like BDSM circle Y or N?
No, I would not be that. He doesn't care about the consent part. He just wants to cut people up.
Yeah, no, this is just a courtesy. We want to know what you're into. It's just nice if you circle the Y. It's going to happen.
They're kind of hoping that you're not into it, because that just makes it better for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Lua kind of doesn't care one way or the other, but she's just very into him.
That's almost worst. Okay, who else do we meet?
Actually, I think we cut to...
Well, before we go too far...
Go ahead.
The FBI.
Yeah.
I love that from the get-go when we meet these FBI at this moment in time. It's essentially, as I put it in my own notes here, it's the Immortal Investigations Unit. They know, they are aware there is something going on.
Yeah.
They just don't know exactly what.
That's absolutely true. I noted that as well, as they aren't supposed to talk about it, which leads me to believe that maybe an Immortal is on the police case force? I don't know, that wasn't explained in any of the episodes we watched. That make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, it might be more that, like, cops have been bought off by the mob, but...
It's possible, too.
Yeah,
I guess I was thinking on the positive. I forgot we are actually watching a Immortal mob war.
Mm-hmm. Which is weird that you would forget that, considering that's kind of the whole...
Yeah, the whole point of it.
Yeah.
Oh, right. The other thing about Lad is that he was on that train specifically because he was trying to hijack it.
That worked out for him.
Well, not well.
Throw Lad from the train.
And he also, like, specifically is really into killing people who, like, have that arrogant attitude of, like, I can't die kind of thing, so he, of course, gets wrapped up with all the Immortals.
Makes sense.
Yeah. He gets a metal arm later, too.
I believe we cut from the FBI Immortals unit when a call comes over the radio saying the bookshop got shot up, and then we go back over there? Is that here?
Well, first, at the tail end of them finding Lad and Lua, further down the tracks, they're fishing the luggage out of the river, and they find and they find a chain on a suitcase.
And they're all like, "What you riding there?" And she's like, "Roll top desk."
Why you ask, fool?
I love chain.
Yeah.
And chain
so
loves you.
Their team. She was there with like Nice and Jacuzzi, and the LaFerrays there to hijack the train.
I also
they were part of that group. Yeah.
Niece is fun.
Yeah, she's okay. Have anything with problem with her other than I don't spend enough time with her for me to form.
Yeah, we
super
don't see
opinion.
much of her in
that's
this,
fair, yeah.
which is unfortunate because I like her a lot.
I didn't remember her at all, I'll be honest.
She's the one I think who ends up with one eye in the 13th episode.
Correct.
Yeah, well, I think she's got one eye all along. It's just that we find out what she's been keeping in the other socket.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not saying she's bad. I'm just saying, of all the people in this show, I definitely remember her associate Jacuzzi Splot.
I mean, to be fair, that is a name.
It's such a name. Every time it comes up in the flashcards in the opening, I just laugh.
It sounds like a place and the thing that happened there.
Sounds like a precursor to a Rorschach test.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, they get the call about the bookstore, and then we get to the train to wrap up back to the beginning of the episode where Firo, Ennis, and Misa are waiting at the train for their friends. They're there to pick up Isaac and Miria, and then we see a woman in military fatigues limp off the train, and we see Niece and Jacuzzi coming off the train, and we see the little boy coming off the train.
Well, I will only ever remember as cheese.
As what?
Cheese.
Chaz.
Chet.
Cheese. He's a dairy product.
Also, we didn't mark where the eye catch for this episode was, but
Oh yeah.
we like when we get to the eye catch of the episode, we never see the vice director and Carol ever again.
Yep.
That is true.
What the heck? It's just like, all right, we're done with this. We're done with this framing device. We have framed it. Let's move on.
I'm pretty sure
I
it
love that.
ends with them wrapping it up again, like it bookends.
Oh, that's why they need to have those 3 extra episodes. They remembered that they didn't do anything else with those 2.
You know, I actually was thinking about that when you said it too. Or it's just like, I just imagine the studio, like maybe 2 or 3 months after the series is ended. Someone's just in there. Oh shit!
I forgot to pick up Cam.
We left some ends untied. Get everyone back in the studio.
Think it was intentional to see if they could get more episodes? Or is there more to the actual anime or the manga?
I would actually be really interesting to learn more about like what the process of the original material was, to know if maybe that had something to do with like production schedules or something.
Pretty similar. Hang on, let's see.
Because like I don't know much about how like light novels are produced, but I could almost see that like maybe either they played a bigger role in that, but in a, because you know, not counting the last 3, a 13 episode season is like a pretty standard length for a season. It is also a relatively small amount of time to crush this much story into. So if you're gonna cut quarters, I think you're gonna cut quarters with your framing device, you know.
The first novel came out in February 2003. The first 13 episodes were aired in July to November of 2007. So it was a tight turnaround.
Oh.
And there were 22 light novels.
Whoa.
But again, that's kind of like saying
Oh.
22 chapters, because they're like relatively short. It was also readapted into a 2-volume manga, so like it's not that much story.
Yeah,
And
take that as you will.
There's also an adventure video game for the Nintendo DS.
All right, go on talking about the show. I'll be back after a quick Google search.
Yeah, hold on. I need to know, can we play as Isaac and Miria specifically?
I'll let you know.
It's interesting. I wonder what they would do with that.
I guess it's just a manner of like releasing another little chapter. I mean, they made a video game out of The Godfather.
That is fair.
You can milk anything.
But please don't.
The almonds get really, really sad.
So that was the end of episode 1. Introduces us to a lot of characters and some wild and wacky events. We get our closing song, Calling, which was also very popular, and I heard a lot in high school.
God, this was like...
No, not high. It wouldn't be high school. It would have been... That would have been the DeviantArt chat. There were a couple people who were obsessed with this song.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I was going to say, we originally watched this in college. I remember watching this on a specific Lenovo brand laptop.
Yep.
Oh, boy. Just like with Death Note. I guess maybe I'll put my thing here. Part of why I keep ragging or just bringing up the way that Carol and the vice director don't come back is because I feel like they are there to lampshade the idea. They're like, I love the conversations about like just like the the idea of like, oh, the way you present information affects the experience of the story. Like, I think that is sort of like a theme of every show we've talked about here, right? Like it is so intrinsic to just like the nature of narrative and media and presentation and rhetoric, whatever you want to, like, it is a very cool concept. I feel like their purpose in this story is to kind of show up and be like, yeah, it's kind of hard to tell a story when it's so mixed up and meshed up like this. But that's kind of just a lampshade that like, yeah, we don't know if we did a good job, so we're going to put these people who are going to say that it's hard to do this, so you shouldn't be too harsh on us if it feels like a mess, because we know that it's that thing of just like, if we leverage the complaint at ourselves, that protects us from it. And I'm like,
sort of. But
I'm going to kung fu this against that. I see it a different angle.
Okay.
I see them setting an expectation, not trying to protect themselves. I see this as saying, like, listen, this isn't going to be straightforward, and that is intentional. We are telling you that. Whether or not you accept that, that's up to you, but we're telling you this is the way it's going to be because we have chosen to tell this story this way. I don't see it as being, oh, it's really hard. I think it's designed to be there to say, like, yeah, this is going to probably not be as what you're expecting, and that's okay. I almost look at it as like some Shakespeare plays or some others that start with just like, here are two people starting to tell a story, and then we just go in and we never see or hear from these again because they don't need to be relevant. They serve to their purpose by just saying, like, yeah, instead of being just text at the beginning of a film or a show saying this will not be in linear order.
Okay. Also, I don't remember how much it comes up in the show, but in the light novels, like, there's other characters from the Daily Days that, like, play a part in stories and stuff.
I don't remember any of them in the show.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking it was less they took that out in the show.
Well, so my other part of it is whenever I try to think of the middle of this show, my brain goes back to a book that they made us read in high school, A Winter's Tale, which you will probably have forgotten that there was a movie adaptation of starring Colin Farrell back in the aughts sometime. It was a bad adaptation. I forget if the movie was any good. But the thing about that book is that it is a book that takes place in like turn of the century. Is this turn of the century? I don't know. But like takes place in a similar time period with this similar idea of like, maybe not like mob, but definitely like New York City thugs and people who are from an earlier era, like taking part in kind of modern times, and there's magical elements of it, and also there is a whole parallel story that takes place on a train in a completely different era, and like so much about this show and that book are so similar that every time I think about the middle of this show, I think about that book. Here's the thing though. When I say that they're similar and they have this like similar structure of sort of like telling the related but separate parallel stories sort of intertwined with each other. That book does it without a framing device and someone at the beginning saying, you know, oh, this is hard, so let's help you understand how and why we're approaching it the way that we are. And it still plays the same. And I think that book actually does a better job of telling it sensibly and making the stories actually like parallel each other and play into each other rather than just sort of jumping between which one you're telling at a point. I can talk more about that when we're done talking about the episodes, but that's spoiler. That's kind of where I come down on the show. And so I feel like they are kind of setting an expectation, but for me, because I have this other extremely related thing, I'm like, that has already set my expectation. So when we come in and they're trying to set my expectation, I'm just like, oh, you're just saying, I've seen this example of how it can be done right, so you're just excusing why you maybe couldn't do it right. Like you're setting this expectation of like, yeah, we kind of couldn't figure it out too well. Which, like, honestly, the thing that sort of backs that up for me is we have Carol and the VP discussing it, but like, he keeps asking like, oh, what if we do this? What if we do this? And she's like, what if we do this? And I think this works. But like, they do this thing where like the last thing is like, oh, well, you know, why do you think we should do it that way? Or why do you think that makes this the best way to follow it? And they never actually answer that. They disappear without actually ever addressing that. So I have this weird feeling of like, you're going to have them pose this interesting question that would work as this framing device, and then have them never connect with it. It's like all wind up and no punch. It's just like, why are you there? Like that, I think having them there, it sort of like undercuts the show. Like, I don't know.
So 2 points.
Yeah.
First, sometimes the best stories don't just hand you the answer. I would argue there's the possibility they were giving it as something for the audience to think about why they did it without necessarily spoon feeding it to them. That's a possibility. I'm not saying that's what they did. I'm just saying possibly, and that's fine. Secondly, I would say consider the audience for this. And when I say that, I mean consider a average anime audience, not yourself, but the average anime audience in Japan. Because that's where this started. Typically, a lot of anime are in what format? In their storytelling. It is a linear progression. So what I would argue is this is trying to set up an opening to let the typical audience know, who may not have experience with stories that are non-linear, to just kind of brace them for that and just say, this is going to be that way. It doesn't have to be, well, it was done better this way, so it needs to be done like that. They are giving something different to typical anime fare. This, I'll be honest with you, I can't think of another anime that goes non-linear this hard. So this is maybe not so much them excusing or trying to say, well, we did it this way because we like it, but more explaining, this is the way it's going to be. And we hope that helps you as you go in to watch that, to understand it.
I mean, the answer is that they're from the light novels. They use them as a bookend to frame the series. Because I checked, they do show up at the end of the series. Because episode 16 is called "Carol Realizes That the Story Cannot Have an Ending."
Fair. And to that point, then that only backs up. That is probably why the answer to your question is because there can't be an ending, because the story of Immortals is ongoing.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the second episode we watched was episode 7, which is called "Everything Starts Aboard the Advenna Avis." And this is the beginning of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So wait. Sorry, go on.
Go ahead.
No, go.
I want to kind of cut to the chase on something on this one. Because, I'll be honest, like I said, I haven't watched this whole series through because when I started to watch this originally, Once Upon a Time, it also, like, Hulu and Funimation lost the rights to it, and like a week later, I'd only watched a few episodes, and spoiler for the modern era, it was never picked back up anywhere and exists in the ether. This is why physical media is truly important.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to know something if I missed it in this episode. They keep referring to this person who brings about the immortality elixir as a demon.
Mm-hmm.
Are we talking about a literal demon?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I was kind of hoping we were going that way, but again, with this episode, and spoiler for everyone, I'm coming off of COVID. My brain is maybe not as sharp as it normally is. So I'm thinking here, like, are we talking about, and I'm gonna pull a Bob here. I'm never gonna call him by his real name. Was S Lizard just trying to pull a fast one? Because I was a little confused on that.
Fast one as what?
Like, I thought, like, the demon in quotes as I was watching, it's like, oh, it's just S Lizard, like, fooling around.
Oh, no, it's a demon.
Like Mr. F around and find out.
So they confirm it is a demon because he says that that's not what he is, or that's not his name, to that effect.
He's just like, you called me that. Nobody else was calling me that.
Yeah.
All right, fine.
And here's my problem with that, Bob, of trying to understand if they're being literal or not. I've consumed so much media where, you just have someone really witty saying they're a demon when really they're not, when they're just the first immortal because reason. So that is where my problem in understanding this comes from. That's why I have to ask. Like,
my problem is that I watch way too much stuff where it is actually literally demons.
And I've seen that too. And so for me, it's like I'm really relying on the story to just kind of tell me, to show me the thing, which they never do, which I admit, like, leads me to think it's a demon. But also I'm missing also on a lot of context here because I haven't been afforded the luxury to watch all of this through because of licenses being dropped.
Yeah.
So I'm like, maybe it's not. So that's why I asked the question.
I don't really remember if, like, the demon talks to that one guy and is like, yeah, we'll meet again someday. I don't remember if that's actually covered by the show. Is it?
Oh, yeah.
He does make a reappearance in the last episode we watched.
Yep.
He did?
Yep.
I just watched it. I do not remember that. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
We'll discuss it after we get to the last episode.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this episode and the story starts in 1711, where Misa and a bunch of alchemists are aboard this ship called the Advenna Avis. And they are there to summon a demon to obtain eternal life, as alchemists do.
Can I also interject real quick? I just need to get this off there. My notes for this episode really kind of go in back to back while I was watching this. Was because I wasn't sure if it was actually a vampire or maybe they were initially from the start of the episode or a demon. I was like, maybe it's a vampire. Maybe they're doing kind of like the last flight of the Demeter. So like my notes go from like Enter the Vampire Man to awfully FMA in here to awfully Dracula on the Demeter in here to awfully Wishmaster in here.
Uh-huh.
And
he is the world's nicest demon.
Yeah, I'm down with this guy. Like they're doing the ritual chant, and he's just like, "Let's all right, enough. I'm here. I hear you. What do you want?"
I do appreciate his attitude.
We are ruining this episode by going out of order so bad. I'm sorry, Joe.
It's okay. I mean, it's not like I have tight notes about the scene order, so I'm just hitting the main points. Feel free to like jump in if you have notes or comments about anything.
Okay. I mean, I'm saying I can do that.
Yeah.
Okay, listen. Why are they on the boat? Are they
international waters?
Okay, because I was just like, did whatever country they're coming from just be like, hey, y'all alchemists are just pains in the ass. You're exiled. So they are like pilgrims of like, well, we gotta start the new alchemist nation because we're not welcome there anymore. And I'm like,
so this is like.
I was making a joke. I don't know actually why. They're in the middle of the water.
So here's my read on it because I don't think they ever say. at least not from what we were given, and I'm going to be judging it in isolation on that part.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We know it's 1711.
Hmm.
Gas station of that era.
Yeah.
You get the joke. They're on a boat. I would assume they're on this boat just because it's a group of like-minded people with at least
It's an
But are they like-minded people?
It's an alchemist convention.
Yes, it is like-minded people because they're all alchemists.
But that, as I refer to him always in the notes, Grumpy Butt was very much not in line with everybody else.
Okay, like-minded because of their interests, not because they all agree on everything.
Yeah, like I'm
Do you
pretty
think
sure
that would have been in the pamphlet? Like 10:30
necessarily.
hors d'oeuvres, 12 o'clock
Bob-
demon summoning.
I'm pretty sure they're all there to just kind of like they're all from different places and they're all like sharing knowledge.
It's a symposium,
Yeah.
essentially. And that's what you gotta kind of look at through the lens of. This is a group, again, a gathering of like-minded people. Like-minded because of their interests and what they want to discuss. And because I'm sure in 1711, alchemy frowned upon.
Absolutely. It's just Grumpy Butt really annoys me because it's like, I don't want anything to do with this. This sucks. Oh, by the way, I'm here as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he
A
was
frown
interested.
from a distance.
I'm sure he was interested and just at one point said, no, this is not the way I want to go about it. I mean, regardless, this is why they're here, to discuss the thing.
And for me, I have a disagreement point. I feel like this was just their tool to say, oh, look, insert villain.
I mean,
Yeah, I feel like this
how
is
you do that.
probably an abridged version of the events as
Mhm.
in the novels because I know there's at least a couple of characters in this episode that I
Couple.
don't think we see more of.
A
Yeah.
couple. When we
Like,
see all these immortals
Mexican-
later.
There's a Mexican samurai who I want to see more of.
And there's like
Yes, I
a,
want to know the samurai of my people.
I would say an African native as well in the background. that we see,
Yeah.
and it's like, there's all these people, but we keep to the mafia.
If I may, 22 volumes of a light novel,
Yeah.
originally 13 episodes of a show.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to cut some corners.
I just want to know more about the one guy who looks like he is either the bassist in a band or the pilot of Getter 3 who plays a flute while sitting in a windowsill.
Oh, no.
Johnny was here?
Uh-huh.
But anyway, so they're all on the boat.
Yeah, they're on the
to
boat.
discuss.
They start summoning a demon. He appears like, yeah, no, I can read your minds. Like, you don't got to do the whole thing. I'm here.
Just
I do love
imagine
that,
that
like-
in real life. Oh, quit it. You don't need to
Yeah.
sacrifice that goat. What are you doing,
to
you
be fair.
weirdos?
To be fair, when I have to go into meetings at my job, it's like, listen,
Oh,
let's
yeah.
cut the preamble. Let's get to
It's
the
like-
point.
We
So
all
I
know we're
clearly am a
here.
demon.
I know what you're thinking. I know what you want.
Listen, this summoning ritual really could have been an email.
I mean, it kind of was after they FMLA a sigil into the deck.
Yeah. They're prepared to go all into it. And he appears as a shadow on the wall. He gives them their elixir. He gives the person who summoned him specifically the formula for it. Or the
Which is
knowledge of the
huge.
formula for it.
Closest to evil that he gets.
Yeah, and
no, it wasn't
he
you.
explains the rules for being immortal.
Pat someone on the head, guess what? They're dead.
Yeah, the
I
only way
didn't-
for an immortal to die is to be devoured by another immortal via magic pats.
But then you gain all of their knowledge
Right.
You can
Also-
transfer knowledge as well.
by doing
Yeah.
the same thing, but without being hungry.
If you
Yeah.
don't think about eating them, don't even let it cross your mind.
Like,
If you're
oh,
feeling
I love
peckish,
this.
don't transfer knowledge.
Seriously, I love this. I love that it's like, here's immortality with rules.
Yes.
It's like,
and
there is an escape button. However, understand what it
Only-
is.
yeah, but like
You gotta get your
right
friend to
from
do
the
it.
start. Yeah, right from the start, you're presented with a scenario where there is always going to be one left.
they made Highlanders.
Yes, they did.
But they don't
Without
act like
the murder.
Highlanders where we meet them. I mean, they do, but they don't.
Mhm.
I'm sure someone there was Scottish.
Maybe in the dub.
It was really weird. I was like, Scotty, is that you?
But yeah, the other rules are they can only use their real names when speaking to one another. Like you can't lie about who you are. And as an extension of that, kind of also like you can't really construct like a false persona to live by. It'll deteriorate. Like it doesn't hold. I mean, it's not really relevant to this story specifically, but it's information that I have to share.
Well, if
Okay.
you're an immortal, it's going to be, hey,
Mhm.
look over there. That person hasn't died today. I'm pretty sure I shot him up.
I
Yeah.
like that. It's not that they have to keep it secret, but they choose to because it's going to be easier in the long run.
Mhm. Another thing that's not specifically mentioned, but I think is interesting, is that when your body gets sliced up and you get put back together, the more often it happens, the faster you go back together.
Oh. You get good
Really?
at it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an immunity.
Yes.
Super healing.
Kind of like that
Or
guy
super
from Men in
boo-boos.
Black.
So the demon, after they summon it, gives Misa the elixir formula.
Mm-hmm.
And they all discuss it, and Misa essentially says like, no one else must become immortal. It's kind of a thing we should be keeping a closed deal on, but there's some real big dissenters. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, yay, democracy.
Yeah, and I mean, they rightfully point out that not sharing it now doesn't mean never sharing it. I mean,
Right.
personally,
I'll see that at the
I'm on
end.
the side of holding on to the information until you see how this affects people.
As he put it, we could rediscuss it in a couple centuries.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I loved that. I really loved that too. That not just like we can discuss it later. It's like let's discuss it in a couple centuries. The implication that like unspoken being like we will be wiser with time.
Yeah, and you'll have more of experience with it. Like you see what it does to you, how it affects your life and your thinking,
And the additional subtext of the unspoken. It's not like we don't have time to think about
right.
this.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so like Huey steps forward. He's like, I wish to suspend this vote, and then S Lizard is like, no, we should give out the knowledge. Give me the knowledge. This is not a problem that I want the knowledge. In Misa, and this is one of those things too. I love this because in other shows, it's like the person saying, no, we shouldn't do this thing. In most other shows is just kind of really stupid and assumes, well, everyone will be okay with this. It's okay. No, Misa's like, I need to kill S Lizard now. I need to kill him because this is going to be a problem. And he has the accurate read because he goes in there and I forget who goes with him, but it's like, don't do this. I knew you would do this. And I'm like, yes, because I know he's going to do this. And they pull back the blanket and son of a bitch, S Lizard is already 4D chessing them. Like, I knew you would do this. And he's out there killing others.
Pillows.
Yeah, the pillow straw dummy in the bed.
He learned that from his 13-year-old daughter when she snuck out of the house.
And I love that he goes to kill, what was her name? Sylvie?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
He goes to kill Sylvie. He's like, I killed your boyfriend. And now I'm going to kill you too. Because I knew...
Backing up a little bit. Because her boyfriend...
Yeah, I'm sorry, I realized I skipped.
Her boyfriend is Misa's brother. And earlier in the night, Misa's, ruminating about this knowledge that he has. And he realizes that, like, this happy, calm acceptance of this immortality is not going to last, and so he wants to share half of the formula with his brother, so at least if something happens to Misa, they'll have something to go on if they want to make more. And and then they find out later that Zillard ate his brother.
Mm-hmm.
No question.
Right away.
Yeah, because he was at the door.
When he gave it to his brother,
yeah,
did he lose that half of the knowledge?
No.
I don't think so.
He shared it.
I wasn't sure.
It copies it.
Okay. I was just wondering because, again, for me, there was like two ways to read this. It's like, we divide the knowledge that way. If one of us goes, is attacked, someone doesn't get it all, rather than just someone gets half of it while I still have the whole, and I'm still a bigger target.
Yeah, it's a really weird way of being like, oh, in order to protect this, we'll split it up. Except we'll actually just copy it and thus make it more available to the public. Like, and you're a smart one, huh?
I mean, honestly, like, if it had gone properly, no one would have known that he shared that information.
Yeah.
But
Zillard was at
playing the door.
4D chess.
Yeah. Well, he was looking through the keyhole while he did it, so it's like, well, that was immediately useless.
I guess it does sort of explain why in the future we have like different tiers of immortals, because I'm guessing the one that most of them get is the elixir made with half knowledge.
Yes, and I was going to bring that up actually in the last episode because there's a specific thing with that.
Yeah. Okay, here's what I want to ask though.
Mm-hmm.
Because before they do the whole demon summoning ritual, we get scenes of some creepy guy running around the ship hand sucking people.
Yes,
so that's like foreshadowing.
Yeah, that's out of order. That's Zillard killing everybody.
Okay, because I honestly could not tell. Like, I'm going to have to assume this is flash forwarding because we never address it again, but
yeah, it's one of those things where it's like it's starting the episode in media res of the events and then jumping back to the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was kind of it.
To your point, Nick, that's why I wasn't sure if, like, is this a vampire? Is this a demon? What is this? But once S Lizard attacks Sylvie, I'm like, oh, I see.
Yeah, he's been running around killing everyone while Maiza was sitting there thinking about the weight of his power and responsibility with the knowledge. So yeah,
so Sylvie's attacked.
Right. Maiza attempts to devour Zillard, but is stopped by Elmer Albatross, who also comes back later in the series, but we don't really see much of that. They find that Zillard's not in his room. They go looking for him, and Zillard's run around. He's devoured a bunch of people at this point. He devours Gredo, Maiza's brother, and finds Sylvie, and goes to consume her as well, but it doesn't work because she didn't drink the elixir.
The incredible rock, paper, scissors nature of being vulnerable to immortals.
Yeah.
Now, here's a question again. Just because everything kind of happened so fast, I wasn't sure what I was exactly seeing, and again, COVID brain, for whatever reason, didn't think to rewind it. When he tried to suck Sylvie, did his hand explode off, or did someone disarm him?
No, he got disarmed, literally.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I'm like, oh, it would be so cool if that was like a safeguard against hurting mortals. It's just, I'm here to suck. Boom. My arm.
That would be super cool.
No, it got chopped off. That would have been
so much better.
I don't have a thought right here. Sorry, go on.
Mm-hmm.
And then
because earlier, Gredo and Sylvie were having a discussion about being immortal. Like, hey, if this demon thing works, like, how is that going to affect us? Like, what are we going to do with an immortal life?
I don't know. Raise goats.
And so, like, what's his name? S Lizard. Like, oh god, I've been found out. Tries to panic run. Sand's arm.
Mm-hmm.
Gets kind of cornered on the main deck, and I thought it was Huey or what's his name? Maiza that knocked him off, but it wasn't, was it? It was someone else that knocked S Lizard off the boat with him.
Elmer.
Yeah.
Oh, Elmer or fell into the boat or fell into the water. It was the other guy.
Right.
He was
and then the demon shows back up and says, "I'm a wishmaster now."
Yeah. That's why I kind of want to know what happened with Elmer.
Yeah.
This wish was.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Well, I'm not going to tell you.
But yeah, so he
wishes for more
clearly
wishes.
Survives. But he gets one wish, specifically one because I'm not one of them, Jinn.
Mm-hmm.
I really did like a dude. It's like, you mean like a Jinn? It's like, yeah, but you only get one, not three. What do I look like? And then we cut back to what the quote unquote present of the
Yeah, like the
1930.
1930 present. But yeah, so Elmer falls off the ship trying to de-escalate the situation, and Sillard ends up falling off the other side of the ship.
Never to be seen again.
Yeah, of course.
I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah, so we go back to 1930, and we have Misa and one of the Martillo people named Ronnie discussing the dangers of fighting with the Runaradas. And then as Misa walks out, Ronnie's like, "Damn, son, can't you tell that Zillard's nearby? Like, shit's gonna happen."
Hey, do you think that if they're only half immortals, that they can create half a false persona?
I don't know how to fix that rule. You can only tell people, you can only have a fake last name.
Yeah. Okay, so, all right. Hi, game designer brain checked in when they were talking about the rules for being immortals. What happened if two guys try to hand suck each other at the same time? Like, do you just create like a Mobius loop of sucking? Does it cancel out and neither works? Do their hands explode?
Here's your argument. Here's your answer.
Uh-huh.
The likelihood that they both hit at the exact same time is so minuscule that the one of them is getting the other first. Someone is not getting to suck.
Okay, what if you put your own hand on your head when you're hungry?
They said it had to be someone else.
Okay.
You don't get to end you.
Okay. So here's the other thing.
And guess what? This is not game development time.
No. This one's good. Because they keep showing that, like, it is not regenerative. It is like all of your blood and whatever, like, coming back and reforming. What happens if you, like, cut off somebody's hand and then you seal it in a box? That way the blood cannot get back to the body. What happens then? Does it just stay there?
It blows through like Superman.
It just the hand just swells until it takes up the whole box and it explodes it out. Okay, all right, I like that.
Schrodinger's hand.
I feel like a show that wasn't such a coward would explore these questions. Like,
yeah, that's what it is.
Like, I have a lot of things that I could say about Death Note as an anime, not the manga. I hear significantly different enough that I can't have opinions on that. But that was a series that really went into, like, hey, how would this specific case work? Well, let's play with it and find out. And they address a lot of that. And
that was
bad
goal.
Examples about what I want to expect from how other magic stories express their edge cases.
Going in with expectations, I have been told, is possibly unreasonable.
Yeah, but I just love edge cases. I'm always disappointed when we don't explore edge cases.
That's what fan fiction is for.
All right, I will be back after a quick 800-page Google Doc about my Baccano fan fiction.
There you go.
No, because I'm just kind of describing probably all the things they did to that kid when trying to learn how to kill the Immortals. All right, take it back. All
So
right,
there's probably a reason they don't tell us these things. Because this series gets way darker if you do.
Well, maybe it should be darker.
Or maybe you should have your own show you make.
Oh, I can make a show.
I'm sure there are other shows about Immortals that get into the nitty-gritty of stuff like that.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of thing I would make, so I'm sure it exists out there.
Just don't name it Better Baccano. I feel like you'd make people upset.
It'd be Baccano Plus.
No, it's just you put a 2 and you have to add more exclamation points.
Oh, okay. See, I was gonna go with it's a immortality subscription service, and we're introducing a new free ad supported tier of immortality.
All right, so that's the end of episode 7 and the origin story.
Oberdin.
Yep.
That's my take on this episode. Is hey, I should finish Return of the Oberdin at some point.
Yes.
It did make me think of the game.
Agreed.
Okay.
The what?
The Return of the Oberdin is a video game wherein you're piecing together your what are you? You're an auditor? You're a tax person?
You
You're
are
an
an
insurance
insurance adjuster.
Insurance guy, yeah, and you're there and you're trying to piece together what happened on the ship.
Yeah, this boat, the Obra Dinn, is basically like 3 years late to its arrival from its initial departure, and you are going to this boat to sort of piece together what happened, and because you're an insurance adjuster, so you need to figure out how much your company needs to pay out. That's the premise. But the way that you do that is you have this special watch. It's a memento mori that when you find a corpse, you can touch it and like see the moment of that person's death, and by like looking at every moment of every death corpse that you find on the ship, you piece together everything that happened on this voyage. And that's kind of like it in the way that like you're like jumping around in time and learning, traits about people and relationships at in a non-chronologically linear fashion. It is very much like what this show does. And this episode in particular, all taking place on a boat with some supernatural stuff, is very much Obra Dinn. It's good. It's good.
Sure.
These are good things.
I hope you like fish.
Calamari. So episode 13?
Yep, the third episode we watched was episode 13. Both the Immortals and those who aren't sing the praises of life equally.
Very wise.
We start in 1931 with Claire proposing to Shane in the top of the train. Which are characters we haven't really touched upon in the other episodes, so we don't need to get into that too much.
Joe, I think you mispronounced blood-soaked Joey Weewa.
The way this dude is having a perfectly calm and rational conversation while covered head to toe in blood, I am saying is making him autistic coded, and that is my stance. No further questions.
Okay, you that's surely a read you could have on that.
He's a freelance assassin, known as Vino, who I believe they mentioned in the first episode. They were like, "Hey, we got to call in Vino." And he was adopted into the Gandor family.
20 points to Gandor.
I'm sorry. I know you said Gandor. I heard the Ganondorf family.
Oh, he's a conductor aboard the train.
Mm-hmm. I love that during this, what we will call, I think accurately, a proposition for many different definitions of the word. At some point is also, hey, I don't need your immortality elixir. I don't give a shit about that because I will never die. And then someone shoots at him and he's like, hold on, I need to go kill someone who didn't hear me correctly.
Well, he ends the conversation with like, yeah, you can throw your knife at my back, but I'll just dodge it anyway. So, whatever.
Yeah.
Up to you.
Like, even if you're not that into me, if you don't check the why on my do you like me note, I'm cool with that. You know, there will be no shot through the heart, but you will just be too late.
Oh, he ran away.
Like, oh.
He ran away and joined the circus and was an acrobat for a while.
Oh, he's a Robin.
That's why his physical combat skills are so good.
He's a Dex
He's
build.
Rob.
He's the real what would have happened to Robin if raised by Batman. And then we also get to see Nice for the probably first and only time, really, in any real length. It's like, by the way, I'm out of bombs. This is your chance to know. Her description is bomb, 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 bomb girl. And I love her for this.
I understand it's a thing, and it's not even anime specific. I just don't get it wearing belts of grenades. One wrong bullet.
I'm kind of with you.
One wrong bullet.
Yeah. You go through a forest, one wrong stick. And I know it takes more than that.
It's like, just imagine wearing a gas tank on your back and falling off of a train. It's like the equivalent.
Yeah. That would never happen. But yeah, like I'm with you, Bob. This is, and I know I'm probably gonna rankle at least 2 people here. This is like clothes with way too many goddamn zippers on them that don't really serve a freaking purpose. Those are just dumb. There, I said it.
All
If you
right,
like
so
it, it's cool.
Nice and Nick and Jacuzzi, they're in the luggage car. They're dumping boxes into the river as the train goes over a bridge. Specifically, they're stealing explosives, and their gang is down in the river recovering the boxes.
Oh.
So you don't see people jumping off the train, but neither here nor there.
Yeah. Well, Nick jumps off, and Shane jumps off, but the Shane's from the top of the train. They don't see her. And that's how she ended up in the river on a box.
A box of explosives.
Mm-hmm.
The safest place in the world.
Yeah, and then meanwhile, on the roof, there's a pool of blood that appears and freaks out Jacuzzi and everyone because they think it's the rail tracer, who's this mysterious entity that's been killing people on the train.
Yeah, they've been having a whole different show on this train.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. This is the part where I kind of have a Nick moment of like, okay, hold on, what?
Mm-hmm.
And even before that, or at the same time as that, I mean, my memory of exact events, we have a knocked out Chaz and Isaac and Miria because they care, because they are the best.
Mm-hmm.
And then Flamethrower Man is fighting what I call Headbutt Boy.
Oh my god, he has a gun in his heart, I believe was the line.
Yep.
Yeah.
He has a gun in his heart. Well, that's later on, but yes, he has a gun in his heart.
Flamethrower Man has a gun on his hand. They're best friends. Tattoo Boy, that's where I was looking through my notes. Tattoo Boy uses headbutt, and it was moderately effective.
Oh my, I love that we get the flashback and he has the face tattoo when he's a little baby.
It's a big cry, baby.
Specifically, he got it because Nice was in that explosion and got her face burned, and he wanted to show solidarity with her, so he put a tattoo on his face.
Oh my god.
Because he's a good boy. He's
world.
a good boy.
Great, yeah. See, here's
Don't
the
mind
thing.
Jacuzzi.
There is so little of the show that I actually remember from the time when I watched it all the way through, but the thing that I remember is like this whole flying pussyfoot side of the story could absolutely be its own series. Like this is basically would stand alone as its own story. And in that sense, Jacuzzi is definitely the main character. I don't remember who Firo is, even though Carol was like, he's the most main character-ish. Which
he's the gang man.
I mean, I guess in a little
don't
bit.
Don't mock Firo. I like Firo.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with him, but I
think Spiro's all right.
What I remember is that it's like, yeah, I guess he's the main character because he's going to be the one to eat Salazar at the end of the show. But like, I don't know, he's otherwise like, I could see him like getting his first Charmander and going out into the world. He's kind of got that kind of face.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Boy looks like a Pokemon trainer. I'm sorry.
He has a Charmander and a Firo.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty good. So he's like Pokemon Adventures pro tag. He's red. He's not Ash. He's red. No, wait. What is it in Japanese? Satoshi?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Got there.
Yeah, Ash.
Yeah.
All right. So back in 1930, we have Ennis on the hood of a car after being hit kind of by Isaac and Miria. And we have Zillard in the alley confronting Misa and like about to eat him. Finally.
I love Enos.
After 10,000 years.
But yeah, so Ennis says nice things to Isaac and Miria and asks them not to forget her because the broader story is that she is a homunculus who was created by Zillard. And he can kill her with his mind in an instant. So
awfully FMA in here.
She works for him, like mostly unwillingly. But as is the case with all the homunculus he's created, as they gain more life experience, they develop their own personalities and start to kind of turn against him.
So which one is she? Is she lust? Is she greed?
I don't know which number she is.
I was just gonna say at this point it sounds kind of like Jeff Bezos and all the workers at Amazon warehouses.
Oh, you're not wrong.
Mhm.
Except he didn't make them.
No, but he can kill them with a thought. Funny thing you may not have known about working at Amazon.
That would explain the bald head.
Yeah, Shane is also a homunculi. I can't remember if she's actually a homunculi, but she is the result of an experiment her father was doing to see if immortality could be inherited.
Yeah.
Is that why she's mute?
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
But yeah, there are a bunch of other homunculi running around at one point.
Hey, is the main players of the Flying Pussyfoot side story? I do have to say it every time, and I will apologize though. Sorry.
I won't.
Is it a weird collection of like fetish characters? We have a mute, we have a burn victim, we have a crybaby, we have lad, we have.
Nope, kiboshing that train of thought immediately.
Interesting direction you went with that.
Not talking about this.
Yeah.
Okay. Listen, you got to think.
Strike it from the record.
You got to think about it. This would be an anime watched by people in Japan.
I see where I see where you're coming from. I don't want to have this discussion. We're not including this in the podcast.
Fair enough.
I was going to say it's interesting that they had some representation characters because I thought it was really cool. You had a mute in the story, and you had a burn victim who didn't give a shit essentially about their burn.
On the flip
now
side,
I feel dirty.
There's only one speaking person of color. That's in this episode that we watched of the three.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, it's not a perfect system.
Yeah.
Though arguably accurate representation for the times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this is one of those you gotta kind of nod your head at it.
And they're in Europe.
Is it Europe?
Is it? Is this the trans?
I thought that was in the United States.
Yeah.
Oh no, they are in New York.
Because the train
is
coming into Grand Central.
Sorry, I'm thinking of the Orient Express being the trans. What's it called?
It's
transcontinental. No.
Yeah.
No, this one's transcontinental, which is what made me think of the Orient Express.
Trans Am.
Anyway.
Oh, I can't wait till we get to that movie.
Transformer.
I can wait until we get to that movie. Okay, anyway.
Alright, so back in 1931 on Pussyfoot, Jacuzzi is able to push Goose off the train, causing the flamethrower's gas tank to explode when it hits the rails. And Isaac and Miria attempt to protect Cheslaw from the blood, which turns out to be his blood, returning to his body.
You attacked me with my own blood.
Or cheese.
And we get a little glimpse into Cheslaw's little story here, where he's like talking.
He's trying to kill people.
He's trying to talk himself into just absorbing them.
He's horrible.
In his defense, he was tortured.
Yeah.
A long time, and then eventually ate his torturer. So
where's that story?
He has that all of that knowledge and personality in him as well. And I feel like that has heavily influenced. He got like real paranoid and like came to the realization that, like all the Immortals are going to have to kill each other at some point.
And, I will say to comment on that, when they first set up the rules of this how immortality work, even I didn't think about something like that. I just like, okay, you get tired of living, you go somewhere. Like, but what? And then obviously S Lizard decides, but what if I do it against your will? No, I never considered the moment of you absorb them and gain their knowledge, but never did the box check in my mind at the time and their personality, which really makes it one of those like buyer beware if another immortal comes to you and says, take me out. Yeah. Because especially if you know them and you know their history and it's maybe not the best, ooh, you are literally living with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I was like they play on that a couple of times because like back on the boat, S
Yeah.
Lizard is like trying to be like, "Oh look, your boyfriend's in here with me. Your mother's in here with us." But I read that as he was totally just like playing it, trying to like get her to
Mhm.
give in to him, and I don't. I think it is more interesting if it became like a question about like, is having a collection of like memories enough to form a personality, or can the same experiences in memory lead to different personalities based on the person who picks it up? This show has no interest in answering that question.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I did misspeak a little bit. Like, Cheslot he absorbed all of the memories, and I meant that it affected his personality, not that he
I don't think that he
assumed the
absorbs.
personality of the
Yeah,
guy.
I
Okay,
like
think
he doesn't
still
get
to that
absorbed.
point though, the fact that it affects you like that, and it would make sense, it would alter your personality to X
Yeah.
degree, and
Yeah.
that's still very
Especially
interesting.
when you're a
Yeah.
child.
but
Yeah.
like to like sort of suddenly agree with every take that the person you absorbed has is I
Mhm.
don't think that's what the show is suggesting.
No.
Right. And I'll agree with you there. But again, putting it back in the context of Chaz there, it makes sense that a child would maybe be more inclined by their nature to be put into the I agree with this, or I am more likely to do this now because now you have a lot more memories than you had to begin with influence.
Yeah, he has all these memories of how to kill people, and he has this experience of no one's looking out for me, like all of these immortals are gonna try and kill each other. Like,
Who's gonna suck me?
yeah, so he becomes very paranoid and is like, trying to talk himself into doing what he needs to do to survive as he sees it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Unfortunately, Isaac and Miria are too dumb to figure out what's going on, and they
Even when you
just
refer to him as bad,
love him.
which is
beautiful.
nice of them.
Get over it, Bob.
I'm on your side, Bob.
Get over it. This is
Anyway.
so beautiful. Nick, I'm with you on this. This is so beautiful, the power of, taking in someone that's traumatized and helping them work through it. Yes, at hyper speed here, but still, it's a beautiful idea.
Do you think
Yeah.
the power of stupid makes good parents?
No.
I mean, I don't know. I've seen some pretty dumb parents and some kids come out all right.
That doesn't mean they were good parents.
I think that's actually
I mean,
part
they
of
were
it
arguably good.
for me with these two, is that like normally I do hate it when like everything comes up roses for stupid characters, but like they've got wrapped up in all of this in large part because of their obliviousness to all of it. So like I think this is like they are characters who like are sort of getting their comeuppance for their obliviousness and all of that. Like they're kind-hearted and they at some point are paying for it. So I'm just like, if they can have a moment where they win, I'm all right with that.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I'm on the same boat with you because, again, Bob, you've known me long enough to know I am not the one where I'm okay 9 times out of 10, and it all worked out. But in this case, I'm like, there is kind of almost a logic to it in the context strictly of the show.
Because let's be real, anybody else he would have run into, he probably would have been right on his take about like, oh, this person's just gonna eat me as soon as they
he's
have
like,
the
I need
chance.
to eat them before they eat me. Is basically his mentality.
And then they immediately subvert his expectations, which again, dealing with this massive amount of negative memory and hard drive space, essentially, it's like, error 404 found, error 404, response not found. So I can imagine it having that in the context of what we see here. Again, any other show in the real world, I'm saying, no, that's not what happens. They are now a 2020 special.
On the flip side, I do have several questions about Cheese.
Okay.
As far as like his upbringing and such, because this is not quite 200 years later. So he's been captive for that long. Is that what happened? Is that he got kidnapped early on and then just was locked away for torture? because he had no chance to learn outside of this point about the outside world. Because in 100 years, yes, you're immortal, but you could learn some things.
I'm trying to find out how long he was.
I would say even if he is 50 years, if he is living strictly from the perspective of a child and being likely treated as such, he can learn some things, sure, but again, when you're a child,
Are you saying he can't get smarter though? Then that really limits.
I'm not, and again, Bob, I'm not saying that. I'm just throwing out a hypothetical.
I understand.
All I'm saying is there is the possibility to become stunted because there are incredibly intelligent people out there. But also, you can have people like if they don't really have the interest to learn, and I'm not saying that's what he is here, but possibly if he didn't have the interest to learn, he may not have really developed. He also may have just hid because he didn't know what else to do.
Because his is an interesting character. I want to feel bad for him. I don't know enough about him.
And I'll be honest, I'm operating on the assumption that this was probably very less than 10 years later. This kid is now someone's torture porn.
But that would have to have been an immortal, which I guess it was because he
absorbed it was specifically his guardian who he was on the boat with.
Okay.
So that
does help lead into it.
Yeah.
Oh no, that was the Getter pilot, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh no. Never trust a bassist.
How do you feel about Getter now, buddy?
Oh, I still like Getter. That's why they kicked this guy off the team when they upgraded when the Getter got its mid-season redesign.
Yeah.
Yeah, due to problematic pilot matters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that does lend me some sympathy to him because this episode definitely brings him to the forefront.
Yeah.
The 3 episodes that we watched, I'm assuming he's probably in a lot more episodes than just
he's in these episodes.
And I would put money down that he is introduced as oh, he's just a kid, I don't know, and then he's like, I'm gonna kill everyone here, and you're like, whoa, little kid's a bad guy, and then we wrap it back around.
200 years of darkness that he's working through.
Okay, and you know what? Listen, game design brain coming back. It's not actually an elixir of youth. It's not actually a cure-all.
It's immortality.
It's immortality, but everybody seems to be locked at the age they currently are.
They kind of explained that in this episode.
What biological level of locked are they? Because as kids grow and develop, the nature and construction of their brains does actually change, which will change, their personality and how they respond to things. So it would be I like when we I hate that I'm about to say this, but they start to address it in Twilight when they talk about
don't do it.
Edward Cullen has been a teenager for however long, and it's just
better example. Arguably better example. Interview with a Vampire, the girl that they
Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah.
But that idea of just because that also changes because I feel like I've seen enough of the stories where this little kid is actually an immortal, and so it's basically this 200-year-old mature person faking being a little kid to keep up appearances. But the idea of just no, this kid's actually still got the brain of a kid after 200 years. It's just oh, you're gonna be way more messed up and
they're gonna be processing things at a child level.
It's a torn thing for me because you have learned responses even as a child.
Yes.
I think that's why it would be an interesting sort of character premise to explore.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be
news for
a
you.
Different show.
What's gonna happen?
Oh.
So back in the alley with Sillard and Ennis and Misa, Ennis of course goes after Sillard, and he's just well, this always happens with my homunculi. You start, thinking for themselves. And just kind of paralyzes her with his mind instead of killing her outright because he wants to give her a slow and painful death. And then Isaac and Miria step out of the car and start throwing rocks at him because they don't know what's going on, but they know that their friend is in trouble. So they're stepping up. And then Firo, the Gandors, and the Martillos are all still alive. And to Sillard's surprise, because they've drank the elixir. So Ennis tells Firo how to devour Sillard.
And then they enter the find out stage.
And the Montagues and the Cadillacs. Everybody gets together for the
The
finale.
Mitsubishis and the Cadillacs get
Uh-huh.
together. It's great.
Whatever it is from West Side Story.
Sharks and the Jets?
Yep.
Never seen
Yeah.
that one either.
Snap your fingers.
You have so.
I have not.
I have made you watch that movie.
You have not.
You cannot have been with me for 15 years and I have not made you watch that movie.
Nick, I have a suggestion.
Uh-huh.
Did you perhaps go to your happy place while watching this movie?
It's not that bad.
It's not that.
My happy place. No, you would have noticed if I was playing Quake.
Joe, did his eyes glaze over?
I don't remember.
Maybe he
It's
imagined
entirely possible
going
that I
inside.
did not actually make him watch it, that I've just had it on several times while I've been here, and he's been in the room and not actually watching it.
Maybe we were
And
going
it's
to
the,
get
it's
to
the
that.
original, right? Not the new one.
Oh, of course. The new one. Oh my
Okay.
god, I got so mad at the new one.
Maybe,
Ugh.
I didn't know there were two.
Ugh.
maybe we were going to get to that after you finished watching Space Ghost Coast to Coast with me.
Oh, shush.
Oh. Listen, you go to
Mom, Dad, quit
leakystudios.net
fighting.
/ podcast, listen to the latest episode of Orbiting the Ghost Planet, and learn more about this argument. Anyway,
So S Lizard bites the big one by getting bit.
Yep. And
And then
now
the FBI shows up.
Furo has his brain.
And it does not turn evil as far as we know.
No.
Also,
He's
though,
like-
mature adult at this point,
Yeah.
not a child.
And even though Mesa is like, oh, well, poop, you've got the curse. I'm assuming they explain in the other episodes, but I can't help but listen to that and think, are you passing around the herp or something?
The immortality herp, yes.
No, they all get periods now.
Bro.
Oh,
Wait,
That's
hold on. What was
right.
that movie? It Follows? He's got that.
Oh.
I'm sorry, you've got It Follows disease.
Now, if I
Sexually-
understand
A
correctly,
sexually transmitted ghost.
Yep.
the gangsters got the weakened version of the elixir.
Yes. So, Sillard's been working on recreating the elixir using the half of the formula that he has. So there is a second round of elixirs that makes you immortal, but you still age and eventually die from old age.
Yep.
So you're
Because they got
functionally
someone in a
immortal,
barrel.
you're not immortal.
Right.
Yeah, they got someone in a barrel who, like, I don't know, was a cheater? A killer?
That's Detroit Gervais. What was his name?
Ricky
I
Gervais.
don't remember.
Where are we going? Dallas?
Down.
I just know that in the opening he's the one who is like
Drowning?
yeah,
Oh,
like
the river, yeah.
like we start on like the title on his face and then cut to like him in action and he just looks like he's in a snow globe somewhere and it's just like, all right, that's where he is.
yeah.
That was the whole time.
So one of the plot lines is that his sister's been looking for him.
Now she gets to find him.
And it wraps in with some of the gangster stuff that's going on because he killed some Gandor members while he was retrieving the elixir.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
And then he gets to, take a cement oil barrel, dive into Hudson
Mm-hmm.
until the FBI on the scene says, wait. Can we have him to study?
That wasn't the FBI. That was the Ruderata man who was behind the desk in one of the earlier episodes. He's like the head of the Ruderata family.
Was he? I could have sworn that was the FBI guy.
Nope.
Nope.
So yeah, Eve allows Don Runerata to examine her brother in a laboratory to figure out all this immortal stuff in exchange for bringing him back and letting her see him. And then, all right,
And
with
then,
them-
what is his name? Mr. Bloodsuit. Fine.
Mr. Satan dies in this scene.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Which
Got one last half
great.
sentence.
let's admit it, he probably deserved it.
Yeah. He was doing bad stuff on his own. He gets no elixir.
He was a loose cannon, causing more problems than he was worth.
So they do go back to the train, though, and I'm not imagining that, right? I did see that. Because,
Or the train station.
what's his name?
The next
Proposed
thing,
to Chain.
yeah, the next thing that I have is in 1931, the Pussyfoot arrives in New York, and then we have Isaac and Miria arriving with Ches, and they present him as their present to Ennis as a younger brother.
Sure, that's how that works.
Yeah, and then but Cheslaw sees Misa and just kind of like starts crying and is like, "Oh, I think they know each other."
I'm
I was
sure
thinking of
that plays out more of stuff that we've seen in an earlier episode that we didn't see.
Yeah. Oh, because like Misa's the nice one, and I think Ches hasn't really seen him since the events on the boat.
That would be.
I was thinking of when Chain was on, or not Chain, but Joey knockoff Joey Weewa was on the train, and he found Chain's message that she carved into the train.
That's later.
Oh, that's later. Okay.
All right, so Misa and Cheslaw kind of make up. And then in 1930 we have at a party where everyone's toasting. Ronnie comments that he knew about the elixir, but he didn't stop anyone from drinking it, and believes that everyone will make the best of it, which is exactly what he expected from them in the first place. Because Ronnie
By
is
the way, that's the demon.
The demon that's been hanging around watching the events unfold.
Wow, I did not notice that he was in that scene at all. I don't know how I missed that.
And then we have in 1931 Claire on the top of the train finding Shane's response, which states that she will wait for him forever in Manhattan.
I love that she still gets a voice.
And he's like, "Cool. I'll find her after I finish doing my stuff for the Gandor brother."
It would be useful if we knew each other's names, but oh well. We'll make it work.
Just look for the one person you recognize in a crowd that hasn't aged.
That also helps.
Speaking of, the last shot we get is 2001 of Isaac and Miria walking around with a bag of stolen cell phones.
Because they're trying to save the falling birth rate.
Yeah.
And can we talk about
the setting?
Exactly how they're walking around, or as their choice of clearly contemporary attire, such as a very out of place Isaac with a afro and Miria looking absolutely like she's just stepped out of Woodstock. I love them. They're perfect.
I mean, it fits their spirits.
It does, and I love them.
I'm sure they thrived in the 70s.
I bet they did.
Why did they pick New York 2001?
Well,
let me counter that point, Bob. Why does every movie that something has to happen in China pick Beijing or Taiwan?
I thought they were in Tokyo.
No, they were in Manhattan.
They're in New York, where there are 2 Empire State Buildings.
Okay.
Which was sort of an interesting... Well, I mean, also...
Their comments about the declining birth rates, I think I just assumed they were in Japan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess if it was written in Japan, maybe they just sort of assumed that was a wider scale. Who knows? Speculation. It's a hell of a drug. I just definitely took it that, like, they are the kind of people who are trying to do good in the world immediately around them, so they just never left Manhattan. They got off the train, and there they have been since.
Until an outside force... Until an outside force acts upon them and leads them somewhere else.
Puts them on a different train.
Well, considering the show ended...
Puts them in Ikebukuro, which is where they make a cameo in Durarara, which is the next series that was adapted from the light novels by this guy.
Oh, really? I've never seen that one.
Yeah, that one... Oh, man, you would really like one of the characters in it, because it's a Doulahan, which is one of those headless fae creatures
Oh, the one with the cat ears helmet
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
that
Yeah.
they added into the Halo multiplayer cosmetic options at some point.
Oh my god.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so instead of a horse, well, it's still her horse, but she has a motorcycle
It's
Mhm.
her
because
horsepower.
it's like modern Ikebukuro.
Listen, there's a cameo from a completely different, unrelated anime and manga series that's in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so in universe to say that this anime/manga series exists there. And it's a series I'm saving that also features J. Michael Tatum for season 2.
Uh-huh.
Ooh.
All I can say is when Joe talks about a certain nail polish company, I don't pronounce it hollow. I pronounce it the same name as this character.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. All right, and I'm sure we'll probably put Durarara on season 2 because honestly, I like that show too.
High five.
I'll look forward to it. I'll
Yeah.
wait
The
warmly.
name.
And that's all of the episodes that we watched. I only put 3 because I
Well-
figured that was a good.
We did leave one important part off.
Mm.
The fact that they realize they haven't aged.
Oh yeah, right. That was where I was going with that. We find them in
Mhm.
2001. They're stealing cell phones, and it suddenly dawns on them, on Isaac specifically, because he's the one who has all the ideas. Mirio just goes along with whatever he says. That they haven't aged at all, and they're like, "Wow, cool! It's like every day's our birthday."
Mm-hmm.
And
I was gonna say, you know who
leave
they
it at
kind of
that.
remind me of,
Who?
other than Bill and Ted? They kind of remind me of a less intelligent Lupin and Fujiko. Like a very pure-hearted version.
Interesting.
Because they're thieves, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
And they're just kind of bumbling, incompetent thieves in their own way, but it all works out.
It's true.
So yeah, that just kind of occurred to me as I was thinking. I was like, yeah, Lupin and Fujiko would absolutely dress like it was the 70s in 2001.
Mhm. But yeah, that's the quick version of this show, I guess. So I guess it's time for final thoughts. How we feeling?
After you, Chuck.
Well, I'm going to approach this first because I've been thinking about this since Nick started talking about certain things he had concerns with. And I'm going to revisit a little self-trope from from some of the earlier episodes, especially with the anime that I liked, that I haven't really gone back to. So go with me on this journey, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
Considering what you've seen of Baccano, and what you may or may not remember, would you say, or would you be against the idea if now in 2023 going into 2024, 2025 maybe even, if news came out of a relaunch of this show, let's say maybe 2 seasons long, one covering the events of Fiero's side of the story kind of things, and the other with the pussyfoot.
It's so much worse when you don't say flying pussyfoot. I don't know why.
Okay, the flying pussyfoot.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Would you, and between the two, you get this, you'll still have some kind of crossover, but you'll have like one season that kind of leads into the other, and you get maybe a little buildup as the one season starts to end for the other, and through the two, you kind of tell the story maybe of what happened in, 17, 11. Would you be more into that, especially if, like, let's say, instead of 13 episodes, let's say they were 26 each, just to throw a number out there from other older shows when that used to be kind of like the short end of things. Between, on one season and 26 on another. And they kind of fleshed out some of these aspects more. Like maybe you do get a couple episodes that touch on poor Chaz and what happened to him. Would you be up for that?
That's too long.
Yeah, honestly, my issue isn't so much with what they do or don't cover or the length or anything. Like you could lengthen this out and sort of maybe give each member of the ensemble cast a little more room to breathe with their backstories or their arcs or whatever. But I think my main issue is I would almost want to see the version that is more like a spiritual reboot where you kind of like I was saying, lean harder on the VP and Carol, lean harder on the idea of like do what theoretically their job was, and like say, okay, how do we make this a story where all the parts weave together, right? Because I think it kind of in, second partial watching, whatever, like I think my issue is still like when you do the like parallel story stuff like this, what you would normally do is like you would play things normally until the bookstore gets shot up. Then you would have a piece of the story from the earlier story that says, oh, by the way, that part is a plot progression on its own. But during that, you learn, by the way, these characters are immortal. At which point, then you return to the bookstore, and now armed with this new information, the narrative takes a new turn that is not what you thought it was going to be when you were last here, right? Like that is really the thing you do when you do parallel stories like this, because they feed into each other, and it's just like, yes, they're their own story, but each one is giving you information that affects the other, and when you cut between them is when, new pieces need to be revealed to explain what happens next in the other story, yada yada.
Okay, so you're answering something I was really kind of trying to get at and fishing for, which was I'm trying to dissect what your issue was with this, and it's really an issue of you want something more primarily linear, but semi-linear. You don't want it where it's a shotgun.
I want, like I said, I want stories that are intertwined, not just 2 or 3 stories told at the same time. Right now, at least from the parts that we watched, and honestly, each individual episode does it so much that I think, I can start leveling this criticism even without rewatching the whole thing, is this idea of just like the stories sort of progress through themselves at the same pace, but watching one piece of one of the stories doesn't really help us with the other piece. It just sort of...
So
you're saying like normally when you have shows that have different stories going on, they're telling the parts of the stories that kind of relate to each other, either like they mirror like an emotional arc, or events in one affect stuff in the other. Whereas this is just, we're telling parts of stories at random, seemingly without any connecting thread between.
Yeah, like the stories hit the second act at the same time. The stories hit their climaxes pretty much at the same time. But kind of going back to what you were suggesting earlier, if they did like the gang war as a season 1 and then the Flying Pussyfoot as a season 2, I think that would feel very much like it feels here. And then like everything about stuff on like, and then like you could pick whatever the third thread was you want to pick, could be the stuff they flash back to through both. Because that's the whole thing. The reason you do a flashback is to explain something that either just happened or is about to happen. I think it feels a little better when it's what's about to happen, and it's just like, oh, you mean this is a piece in play, and then you watch that piece land back in the present, right? And so, yeah, that's the thing. The way that they do it right now, they just kind of... we didn't really see it when we covered Standalone Complex, but kind of the way that was having, standalone episodes and then the like ongoing storyline, and they were just kind of shuffled together like a deck of cards. Like, I feel like that's kind of what they're doing with the different storylines here. But there is absolutely a way that, like, because there is this, like, layering of stuff, right? Because there's stuff in the Flying Pussyfoot storyline that is sort of explained or set up or is dependent on stuff during the the mafia wars and all the layers of that, which is set up by stuff on the boat and the demons and the immortal drama and all of that. So like there is like a hierarchy that this show does not make use of, and that's why it's the whole framing device of Carol and the director is kind of like that. Like to me, there is a way that these things like fit together to do the parallel story thing that they just don't sort of do. So to have them at the beginning suggesting something that then you fail to really pull through on. And I'm just like, you should have just like not said something and let it sit on its own, because you just suggested like, yes, there is a good way to do it. And then you kind of don't do it the good way, you know? And I'm just like, it's like, like, I'm not saying it's easy to do. I'm not saying I could have done it really any better, but like, don't call your shots. It feels very, kind of pretentious to have these characters here who are very much like, there is a right way to tell this story. Like, even if you did tell it right, that's a very pretentious thing to do.
Interesting. Like I said, my postulating of this is really just kind of fishing to try and understand your point better, and I get it, and I realize where you're coming from on that. It definitely is a point of view issue. Wrong word. Point of view. Period.
No, my point of view is usually an issue. It's fine. My sort of simplest answer, I think, is if they were to do the like, millionaire reboot of this show, I could see them doing something the way they reapproach like Trigun with Stampede. I could see like, hey, we're going to, reapproach the source material and maybe readapt and sort of restructure, repace a little bit. And I think there would be like a masterclass show out of that, or at least one that like it wouldn't take a lot to make the show like really great. It just needs a little bit of, restructuring to focus on that, making the parallel nature of the stories really intertwined with each other.
All right. On to our end of show wrap up list. Sorry, does anyone else have any other roundup thoughts that they want to?
Well, we have our usual question. Hey, Bob, what do you think?
Listening to the thoughts that you two had, the way I viewed it, I actually feel is both the same and different, because we watched this in a bubble with 3 episodes.
Right.
I viewed it as kind of a question of what would happen back in this time in particular if there were immortal people.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just the way my brain interpreted it is 3 separate stories, 2, 3 ending, whether storyline A or story spot B is entered in or out, but it's looking at individuals. I didn't try to make this one cohesive story in my head. I just looked at individuals. Okay, this is what's happening with this character and what they're doing with their immortality. What is this person doing? This kid's getting tortured. This group created a mob. These people are thieves. And take it from there. I didn't try to link everything together, even though all these characters knew each other because of episode 7. We are aware of this. But, as weird as it sounds, it plays a little on me. It helps to explain the characters and how they got their immortality. But that didn't influence my viewing of the story. It's just, this is how they became immortal. They're still separate people. The end and the beginning were kind of like bookmarks. Okay, so we're all just meeting up at the train station again. Whatever. It's just seeing how different people would react with these powers. Most of them being horrible people.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I would say, from what you described, that's kind of similar to how I kind of ran with it, really. It's like, here are all these lives that happen to be immortals because of Thing. And then we see where they went, and essentially a culmination event or events for certain stories. And almost like it's a slice of life aspect, if that makes sense.
And both to counter and prove your point concerning those two characters at the beginning, Vice President and Carol. For me, the thought of, well, who do you focus on comes, these stories are separate. They weren't meant to be together.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, so who do we focus on? This person, this person? Well, how about this person? The only thing I don't care for is that implies that something happens. We don't know what that is.
That's fair.
I think that's part of why, like, overall the show worked really well, because it is this idea of like it's a couple of different takes on like, hey, what would these different kinds of people do with immortality, and how would that, like, if you had this like it's almost like a sort of wider like personality.
And I will posit
I guess
we were not given a cast of good characters to start off with. None of these people would we have proclaimed great. These were the alchemists going out to summon a demon.
Mm-hmm.
So for us to be like, there should be good people in this.
These are flawed individuals.
Hey, little Johnny, let's go out on a boat with a bunch of fun people for the afternoon. Okay, Daddy. So
it's a bunch of character studies.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, it is kind of, you better like the having an ensemble which is a collection of little freaks. Like, we didn't even talk about in the first episode the one creepy torture guy who just sticks his nose through the door and just like, yeah, let me just clean up from the last guy, or I could leave it messy and it'll hurt more. Like, we didn't even talk about that guy, but
I feel like we could have omitted Carol and the Page Master altogether. Started the show with episode 7 as episode 1. Kind of posed it as a thought experiment.
Mm-hmm. I think that would have worked if you definitely did it like very episodic, in terms of like, oh yeah, today we are looking at this character and how they are traversing through the world with this immortal power and their particular collection of character traits. But
I think this way it's presented kind of gives us a flow. Like, instead of waiting 10 episodes to catch up with that one person in the background that you're kind of hoping that they reference, you get, for parlance, more bang for your buck with each episode, which doesn't always make for a great episode. That would be dependent on the viewer.
Yeah, depending on like which group you're catching up with, it's just like, okay, we get 3 more seconds from this character, cool. But we'll see him every episode.
I think that's where it comes down to, as Joe likes to point out, that's more viewer specific. Each of us are not going to like or dislike every single show.
Yeah.
Right. For what it's worth, since I'm not sure if Bob really gave his final say on it, Joe, if you want to put this on a drive and I can casually get to it, I would be happy with that, because
definitely.
Because for me, it's like, judging strictly in isolation these 3 episodes, they do a thing which I like to do. I think I've mentioned it before with like certain book series. If a book series goes on long enough, I don't go to the first book. I will decide if I like it by, reading a middle book or a random book past like the beginning.
That's so weird.
Here's the thing. I don't always do that, but if it's someone's recommending to me and it's a series, I will do that, because if it can make me want to know about the people in it, if I can sit there and say they're talking about a thing and they make it interesting enough to me to want to go back and look at it, I'm like, okay, that's good writing. Let me go back and look at it from my perspective. And I use this, I'll be honest, Bob will immediately know what I'm referring to here in a second. There was a novel series of Star Trek called the Corps of Engineers. And I jumped in like a book right before or right after a major event happened, where essentially you have this major turning point. And just because I'm like, I know nothing about this, and let me see if this is any good. And it made me interested enough in these characters to want to go back and learn about them. For example, that's like the biggest one I can think of, because I think that's like the last time I really did this. But that's how I handled like a lot of things in my like 20s, because I don't want to spend a lot of time on a book series that I'm waiting for it to get better. I want to know, in the sense that I want to jump in and see, is this good enough to make me care to go back and actually start and learn it, to understand it? Or is this something that's like, well, I tried and it didn't hook me, so goodbye.
So
That's what I do with the beginning of the book.
well, so actually, to go back to what Bob was saying about the thought experiment of episode 7 as episode 1, I think that's exactly why this show doesn't start there, and why I think that's a smart move for sort of like trying to play with that idea of like we're saving flashbacks for going back, because that's kind of what they're doing. We had like you want to have this framing device so you can sort of jump forward and show you like, hey, here is some of the crazy stuff going on, and then that, you know, you hook them with like the sort of most chaotic moments in the middle, and then you go back and start filling things in to show how you get there. Like you know, when
That's why everything starts in media res
Yeah.
in general in popular culture, because it's like, whoa, how did these guys get into this wacky situation?
Well, because I was when we talked about Gurren Lagann last time, that's exactly why I picked like 1, 2, 3, 22 or 21 or whatever it was, for that exact same reason. So it's not a bad idea to do it that way.
I'll be honest too, a lot of series kind of, if I know the series is getting good, when I do that whole I watch or read in the middle, there are a lot of series that I like, but I hate how they start. It's like, God, this is so paint by numbers, and I get that's normal. But it's like, there are sometimes like getting through that paint by numbers beginning may be what shuts me off. But if I drive into it, it's like, I know I want to get to this point. I know it's going to be interesting to this point. That is enough to sustain me through maybe like a rough first couple episodes or a rough first book.
We've been watching the Fast and Furious movies in order lately, and man, by the time you get to even 5, that is a different series from 1. And you know, Fast and Furious maybe not exactly relevant genre wise, but in terms of like yeah, structure and how a series progresses, and sometimes you like where it's going even if the beginning isn't your taste.
Oh yeah. So yeah, like I said, it's because that we have this random sampling in the sense of beginning, middle, and end. It's like I will be the one. Normally, I don't give a damn about the ending. It's I'm there for the journey. So this is enough to make me want to go back and watch the whole thing through, regardless. So that way, I'll have a fuller, broader context. So that's where I stand on this. I'm like I said, Bob, I wasn't 100% clear on where you did.
I appreciate the show for what it is, very much. I am curious about cheese, but I think this is one I'll pass, but probably read.
Sure.
Oh, interesting.
Now, when you say read, do you
that's
mean like
probably-
wiki read or find the manga and read?
Probably find the manga.
Ooh, I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, the manga adaptation's only 2 volumes, so it'll be pretty
I
quick.
feel like it's probably infinitely more accessible than the show.
I'm
Probably.
very curious about the manga now, actually.
Yeah, you let me know about that.
Same.
Oh, and reading is far quicker? Question mark?
Yeah, you can go at your own pace.
All right, how about the opening theme song?
Yo,
Oh,
How'd you feel about that?
Bob,
Oh,
don't
that's a-
break my heart.
well, I will not say I love you again. Sadly, I'm going to put this at a 5.
That's still pretty
Great.
good.
Great
That's not bad.
beat. Lasted too long.
You know,
Yeah,
okay.
I kind of had to show all the characters.
And to Bob's defense here, if I'm just
Mm-hmm.
listening to this beat, it's fine. But for a show opening, and I get, yes, this is an ensemble, so I will give it a lot of, yeah, sure. But I'm not going to lie. I did skip it after the first episode because I forgot, like, God, it's that long. Let's just get me to the show.
I keep
Mhm.
like humming
it doesn't
to
work as
myself.
well.
I keep
And
humming it to myself throughout the day, the past couple days.
I just keep thinking about when the name card comes up for Jacuzzi Splot.
Gross.
I will never be over him. I cannot quit him. He's got a gun in his heart.
He had you at Splot.
He had me at headbutt. All right. I hate that.
No, the flying pussyfoot is not going to be a horse.
Damn it!
I wasn't even thinking that, but I'm heartbroken now. Can it be
I
a
was gonna
runner-up?
try and slow roll.
Is a flying pussyfoot rank above or below Gilliam from Outlaw Star?
It 100% is above Gilliam by its name alone.
I don't know. Gilliam has that one pink helper robot, so it stands out.
Nick. I have a counterpoint.
Okay.
Flying pussyfoot.
Okay, but I have a counterpoint because there was the scene where they're in Grand Central talking about when the train is going to get there, and they were saying that because of quote air quotes big quotes the incidents on the train, they were replacing the passenger cars with flat cars, and also they were replacing the engine with an electric engine. So it's more like the flying pussyfoot of Theseus.
Mm-hmm.
Is it even going to be the flying pussyfoot once it arrives?
Nick.
Yeah?
I have a counterpoint.
Okay.
Flying pussyfoot.
Interesting. Wow, really? That ended up on the stack twice. Okay, that's interesting. Does the flying pussyfoot have Flash?
Bob. Flying pussyfoot.
Hang on.
We're going to have a long conversation with whoever named that.
Hang on. I have an answer. Starting a new category called...
Oh my god.
Vehicles.
No, it's just all caps. Flying pussyfoot. And then number 1 is flying pussyfoot. I cannot
looking
spell.
at trains?
You really need to make sure the foot part's in the name.
Or just ridiculous names in anime?
No, it's a list of flying pussyfoot. And
The flying pussyfoot is the number 1 flying pussyfoot on our list of flying pussyfoot.
Wait till I add to that list.
All right, I cannot wait.
There are other anime with trains.
Oh my god.
Another
I have a
anime with
trains
ridiculously questionable names.
Oh, absolutely.
I can just assume.
all right.
Uh-huh.
We don't have any android anime waifus.
So,
I think there are any androids
I mean,
at all.
is a homunculus not a
No.
biological?
that's my question. She's also mute. I don't know how that plays in, but in my
Well,
mind,
her
for some
and,
reason,
yeah,
that is a trait of android, possibly.
And there are
You
two
look
of them.
through our
and they're models.
look through our list of
Therefore,
robot and android waifus and tell me which ones don't talk.
arguably at times are Dorothy Rodenreich.
That's what I'm saying. She is selectively vocal.
Selectively mute.
Ruri only talks in her mind most of the time. We hear
This
a
is
lot of her
true.
inner monologue. She has a selective vocabulary. She mostly just says idiots.
Nick, I don't want to ruin this for you. Don't watch the movie then.
Okay.
She may talk a lot.
All right, and that's all our closing categories.
Uh-huh. So we only have one thing left to do
Yeah.
and select.
Do the thing.
Hey, what are we watching next time?
That's a good question.
Well, let's
We've got
find
3
out.
left, I think.
Yeah, here in
Okay.
the Modern Average Anime Fair here, we have 1, 2, 3 shows left. And close this tab so I can read the names.
Hold on, I gotta reload up this tab because I know I told Nick about this. One of these I have been pre-gaming.
Oh,
You know, if you forward me the tab, I can help you guys pick.
No.
Man,
you already help us pick, Bob. You are perhaps the most helpful in picking for us.
Bob, you already picked the flying pussyfoot. You've done your job.
I didn't even put it in the tagline for this.
Always bet on flying pussyfoot.
Yep.
All right. Our 3 options are Mars has got talent, just a guy who's a hero for a hobby, and can I offer you a nice Gilnana in this Tryon World line?
So close to getting it right.
You know what? I think we should go to Mars.
Let's go to
That
Mars.
is not the one I pre-gamed.
Interesting.
We'll be watching Carol and Tuesday.
So, is it Carol specifically on Tuesdays only? Is it a character named Tuesday? She has
Yes.
a store called Tuesday Morning.
We'll find out.
Individuals.
We'll find out next week
I'm excited. I haven't seen this
when
one.
we watch the show.
Right, and we'll be doing that next week. We will see you all sometime after that when we sit down to record the next episode. And until then, thank you for joining us.
Flying Pussyfoot.
Number 1 in the world, baby!
Deep in the Weebs is a show by Chuck, Nick, Joe, and Bob. Our theme music is Kawaii Friends by C. Cotty 3. You can find our show on YouTube, or subscribe to the audio-only version on iTunes or wherever podcasts are served.
Hold on. Ending 21. This ending is reached by answering Bram Stoker when Miria asks Isaac what the name of Frankenstein's monster is. After Isaac gives that confident answer, something bursts through the window and blood-red letters proceed to form on the wall. The letters chide Isaac and Miria for their mismatch of incorrect knowledge and introduce themselves as the vampire known as Gerhard von Waldstein. And Gerhard encourages people to read Vamp, another series by Narita.
So I think the point is, this gets a little off the rails. Kind of like what we've done.
Yeah.